G'day, good morning, good afternoon. It's Roger Roadside here saying hello. It's, look, the Sir Jim Ratcliffe comments about Britain being colonised. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. What are your thoughts on the situation? For those that don't know, I forgot I was turning left then. For those that don't know or haven't seen the comments, basically Sir Jim Ratcliffe mentioned about how you can't have he's basically being questioned, or perhaps he was giving an answer in regards to how bad the British economy is, and he was saying that you can't have a good economy when you've got 9 million people on benefits and you're letting in so many immigrants, whether it be rightfully or illegally. And he made a statistical claim that I think 2020 the population of the UK was about 58 mil, something like that. Don't sue me, don't quote me, bro. But he said around 58 mil, and then he said the current population was about 72 mil, something like that. Basically suggesting that within the last 6 years the population had increased by about 15-ish million people, which he said was just too much. That was an example of Britain being colonised by immigrants, and the landscape changing, and that was the situation that we were in. So since then there's been, obviously, Starmer has come out demanding an apology, saying that his comments were really, really bad and unjustified and inflammatory and stuff like that. Not really addressing the issue or the concern. Who was the other chap? The other chap who Starmer shut down also came out saying that they were insulting to immigrants, suggesting that they're by colonising, that they're being violent. How dare we say that they're being violent? And it just look, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because in some respects, I know that there's probably people that have come over to this country that potentially are contributing, that potentially are abiding by the law, that potentially are, providing to the society in a lovely way. But there's constant news coming out about people that have come over to this country that aren't abiding by the law, that are, getting involved in fraudulent activity, that are getting involved in scams, scamming out the government and local councils by millions of pounds. There are a truckload of examples whereby people not born from this country are not adhering to these rules. Now, again, I preface that by saying it's not everyone. I get it. It's a moot point by saying you can't tarnish all of them with one brush. Well, then what can you do? And this is the problem, right? Because it feels like if there was only one person that was saying there's too many immigrants in this country, then fair enough. You could sort of write it off as being, that's quite a single-minded view, and perhaps, if it was just one person saying it, then, you could probably get away with saying that it's a wrong thing to do to make statements like that. But there seems to be such weight behind this situation. There seems to be such importance. The society and people of the country have pigeonholed immigration as its greatest concern for about the last decade. It's nothing new. It's not like it's a new thing that people are saying there's a problem with the immigration process. It's nothing new. And by coming out and saying, those comments are inflammatory and those comments are incorrect and this, that and the other, you all you're doing is you're not addressing the actual issue. You're not addressing the fact that that there is a concern in the market. Now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is just one person, but his opinion probably, I would argue, resonates with a tremendous amount of people in this country right now. So, I guess, how do you flag up this issue without people of the left and people in governments and stuff like that, without them either taking offence to it or considering it to be extreme far right fascism, racism, Nazi stuff, right? And like, to put it into perspective, say for instance the UK was your house, right? Say for instance you're a kid in your house, and the UK is your house, and Sir Keir Starmer, the original Dalek from Doctor Who, is your dad, right? He's your dad. He's in charge of the house. He's in charge of what goes on there, and how the house is run, right? His house, his rules. And everything is going along okay. You've got a nice little garden out the back that you like to play in. You've got a nice little cubby house, tree house out the back. You've got a nice sort of swing on a tree there. You've got a nice little pond that you've when it's been a really hot day, you've waded through the pond, making sure not to stand on any of the massive goldfish in there. And that's where you've sort of grown up, and it's been lovely and green in the backyard there, and the house has been clean, and it's always been clean and tidy, and you've always had really well looked after appliances and stuff like that. And then suddenly there's some person jumps over the fence and pitches a tent in the backyard, and dad comes along and says, no, that's all right, little boy, that's all right, son. He's fine. He obviously needs somewhere to live. We'll let him live there. That's fine. We've got plenty of space. And then someone else jumps over and pitches up another tent, and suddenly 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4, 4. Suddenly you struggle to walk in the backyard because there's so many people in tents in the backyard. And you try to have a conversation with them because, hey, they're in your backyard. Maybe it might be good if you become friends with them, and then you can maybe find out, when are you thinking about leaving the backyard? You've been here for a few weeks now. There's a lot of pumpkin seeds everywhere that you just keep chewing on and spitting out. But none of them you can't communicate with them because none of them speak your language. And to be honest, they're a bit abrasive with you. They're a bit abrupt. They're not really that pleasant, and obviously they're frustrated because they can't understand you, and you're frustrated because you can't understand them. So you sort of just let them be a little bit, and then you wake up one morning and suddenly the backyard's been concreted over, and that tree that you used to swing on has been cut down. There's now a chimney there where they're cooking. They're cooking, loads of curries and pig offal and cow brains and stuff like that. And I don't know. But basically, they've cut down your tree. They've cut down your tree. You go up to Dad. You go, Dad, what's going on? They've cut that. 1 minute there was one person out there. Next minute there's 14 of them out there now. And they've just concreted over all the grass. And they've cut down my tree. They've made it into a massive chimney stack, which they're now cooking their curries from. What's going on? Dad's like, no, don't worry about it. You're being insensitive. You're being insensitive, little Roger. You're being insensitive, mate. That's insulting. You need to apologise to him. Because you can't say things like that. Why can't I say things like that? I can see it out the back. No, you can't. That's racist. Okay, sorry, Dad. Sorry. And then suddenly you wake up and 3 of them are in your room. And you're like, how'd you get in here? And they're like, I don't know. They don't even know what you said, so, they can't give you an answer, obviously. And then you walk downstairs and suddenly, there's shit everywhere. There's rubbish all over the floor. Your mum's nowhere to be seen. She's probably off being, well, let's not go down that road, but, We all know what's probably happened to her. But there's shit everywhere, stuff like that. Dad, what's going on here, mate? Like, we used to have a new microwave. The microwave's now been stolen. There's now some tagine, I don't know, bloody plate thing cooking meat. There's shit everywhere. What's going on, Dad? Like this used to be a nice home, mate. You need to wind your neck in, is what he'd say. You need to wind your neck in because you don't know how lucky you are. We have got diversity in this household. We have got inclusion in this household. We are treating everyone the same as how we would like to be treated. You know, people want to come and go in here. People want to live under our roof. By all means, come and live under our roof. Don't worry about it. You don't want to get a job? That's all right. You know what, son? I'm giving them your pocket money. What? You giving them my pocket money? Yeah. Yeah, you know how you used to get £10 a week? Now you only get £3 a week because I'm divvying out the rest between them. And actually, that £3 a week that you're giving, I need that back because I've got to get one of them a new set of false teeth. So, you know, I actually need that money back. So thank you for that. And yeah, look, they're just going to live here in the house, and it's fine. It's good. This is diversity, son. This is diversity. I mean, at what point, like, how do you flag it up to someone who's got that mindset where they're just completely blinkered to the fact that there are parts of this country that are being erased? There's no denying that. You can see it. I see it. You know, and I don't even drive up and down all of this country, but I have through other jobs and stuff like that. I have toured around this country. I have been, you know, up to Skegness. I have been up to, you know, up to Skye, all the way in Edinburgh, you know, all the way in Scotland and stuff like that. I've come down through Edinburgh. I've worked in stuff up in Manchester. I've worked up in Liverpool. I've worked up in, you know, across the Midlands. I've worked in Stoke. I've worked in Cornwall. I've worked in Plymouth. I've worked in Portsmouth. You know, I've worked all over this country, and I've seen and I've spoken to people, and I've seen places where there's very little resemblance of British culture. There is a lot of instances whereby communities of the same sort of background and the same sort of culture have flooded into an area, into a specific village or a specific zone or anything like that, and they've populated. And where, you know, and it's how does this bloody work? Jiminy crickets! I just want to go this way, mate. Bloody hell! Too confusing. I probably should have gone down that one, but oh well. You know, where other British families have had maybe one kid because they're too scared because they can't afford it. A lot of other families are pumping out 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. It's all right. Benefits cover that. And you know, as time goes on, the local corner store, which used to be run by Harry, is no longer run by Harry, and it's not a corner store really. It's a store with a lot of spices in it, and a lot of things that I can't pronounce. Suddenly, there's a few religious buildings around that weren't necessarily there before. Suddenly, there's signs that aren't necessarily in English. There's a lot of clothing places that you know, aren't your typical trousers and you know, braces. I mean, I say braces like that. That's a massive current fashion. But you get what I'm saying, right? There's plenty of places around the UK where you can. It's not just about arguing it. It's just the fact. There are places around the UK where British culture has, I want to say slowly, but it's probably not even slowly, has been erased and or is being erased. So if that is a problem, that you have as someone who is indigenous to this country. This is your country. This is what the country that you feel proud in and stuff like that. It's not to say that I would assume that you don't want anyone of any other cultures in this country. It's more the case that you just don't want your culture to be erased, and you don't want you don't want your fellow people to be second, third on the list when it comes to certain things like appointments and doctor's appointments. And why is it so hard to buy a house? The reason it's so hard to buy a house is because there's a lot of people doing a lot of shady stuff who are accumulating a lot of cash, and the house market is very competitive. And why is there so many people of certain cultures buying up areas? Because they're putting all their forces together and stuff like that. So, for people originally from this country, this is your house. You can't go back out in the backyard and use your backyard anymore because it's now all been, taken up. Does that make sense? So when and if that is a problem, how do you flag that up the chain? How do you flag that up the chain when the people up the chain, as soon as you mention anything to do with immigrants or anything to do with what your concerns are, and the fact that you think that we're going down a path whereby this country is no longer recognisable, and as soon as you mention anything of that sort, you're told to apologise. I mean, A, where's the free speech? B, mate, remember you work for us. As a Prime Minister, you work for us. Regardless of whether you agree with our grievances or whether you don't agree with the grievances, you still work for us. You still, you should be taking into account any problem or complaint that anyone has, whether they be from this country or not from this country. And some may argue that you should probably take people's grievances, more importantly, when they are from this country. But nevertheless, that is the frustration that I see at the moment. It's how do you flag these issues up when it's just constantly being met by a brick wall, or it's constantly being met by spin, or it's constantly being backhanded away, and nothing ever gets done about it. Like I said, this whole thing about immigration is not a new thing. Immigration has been one of the top points that people have been concerned about for decades. So anyway, look, I'd be interested in your thoughts. I'd like to get your comments. What do you think on the matter? I know that going back to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments, I know that from what I read, that his statistics were potentially a bit off. There's some reports that say the last time England's population was in the 50 odd millions was back in 2000. So the thing I'd say about that is that I, first and foremost, I would argue that I don't think, I would argue that I don't think anyone bloody knows how many people are in this country at the moment. I don't think there would be any accurate figure of amounts of people within this country at the moment. I think that people would be very surprised at what the accurate figure would be, because you've got to remember that there's so many people over here that are undocumented. There's so many people over here that are just smuggled into the country. There's so many people over here, and also when you've got governments who don't want to address the issue of immigration, do you really think that they're going to be releasing accurate information? I don't think so. You know. So, I don't know. I take the statistics with a grain of salt. I take the fact that, what I see into account. And what I see is I see homelessness on the rise. I see houses for people, severely not available. When I go to the doctors, I see 10 times more people in there than what I used to see, 5 years ago. And I'll tell you now for sure, what I see is I don't see a mixture of people in those waiting rooms. I don't see a mixture of people in the A&E when I take my little boy in there because something's wrong. I see a very heavy leaning towards certain cultures and certain nationalities. It's not diverse. There's not a balance between cultures. So that's the frustration. I think the frustration is that there's, for years and for decades, anyone who's tried to flag a point about immigration just immediately gets shut down, gets cancelled, gets labelled a racist, and gets labelled like a far-right extremist. I don't see that there's any problem in asking a question, and the question is simple. Is our current process of immigration, is the way that we're immigrating people at the moment, whether it be legally through legal channels or what we're accepting through illegal immigration, do we have the facilities enough to look after all of those people fairly? As fairly as looking after those that were born here. And is there, are we perhaps pandering to certain cultures by allowing people to, buy up a village, buy up a town, buy up a postcode, and then basically convert every shop into something that basically to wipe everything away and start remodeling that town or that village in the same vein as the countries that they've come from. I can give you 50 examples of locations where that's happened and where that is happening. Is that the Britain that is that diversity? Is that upholding British culture? Is that are we creating a safe environment and a good environment for everyone in this country, or are we just allowing certain people to do what they want because they've grown so much that we now need their votes? I don't know. Anyway, this video is now 23 minutes. Jiminy Crickets! Listen, you know what the deal is. Make sure you put your comments in below. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Please like the video. It means a lot to me personally. It makes my heart sing when people like the video. But yeah, look, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments? Do you not agree with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments? Do you believe that we're being colonised or not? Up to you. Put it in the comments. This is Roger Roadside saying thank you, Mum, for me. And I'll see you on the next one. All right, ciao.